What's up, welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Hacks Season 5, beginning the final season of Hacks on HBO Max. Of course, at this point, I think Hacks is well established as the most successful show to come out of the Warner Brothers Discovery delineation when they were treating HBO shows and Max original shows as separate things. Hacks was able to take a lot of the comedy Emmy juice away from FX's The Bear and become a very dependable stalwart in the comedy category, even if ultimately the show is more of a dramedy. I thought Hacks Season 4 was pretty successful and got us into a good spot for the show dramatically to conclude. With Hacks returning for its 5th season, we are entering the final stretch. I'm quite pleased with where the show is starting from, and I'm hopeful for it really nailing the landing here. At the end of the day, the core appeal of Hacks has always been the relationship between Deborah and Ava. Have there been contrived plot reasons to drive them apart and then inevitably bring them back together because of the two stars of the show? Of course. But we seem to be more focused this final season on the relationship between the two of them first and foremost, and the question of legacy and what it means, especially in the case of Deborah. I wouldn't call it the absolute funniest comedy series on TV. That being said, I'm really enjoying a lot of the early screen time we're getting of Robbie Hoffman as Randy. Absolutely everything they say is hilarious, and if that's any indication of where this season's going, I think we're in a great spot. And I do think the show ultimately will nail those dramatic beats just because the chemistry between Jean Smart and Hannah Einbinder has been very good throughout the whole run of this show. And we spend so much time with these two characters and their relationship with each other, there's a lot of audience investment there. The initial premise of the first episode of Deborah trying to swindle her way into EGOT status by targeting obscure Grammy categories and making an audiobook was pretty smart, but I like how we've distilled on this quest for her to join the short list of stand-up comedians to sell out Madison Square Garden. That feels like a really satisfying end place for the show to hopefully achieve. In reflecting on this, I can't help but harken back to The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon Prime Video, a show that has since concluded. That was a show that's a lot different than Hacks for many reasons, but did share some comedic bones and did have a core lead character who was a female performer in a space not always as favorable to women. The will she or won't she make it type thing that Maisel kind of settled on. I'm curious if we might have some similar feelings by the end of Hacks. Just a thought I had. They're not the most similar shows ever. Regardless, though, yeah, I think we're just kind of rocking with the crew at this point, right? I think Paul W. Downs and Megan Stalter, their scenes have always been at times, off to the side of how Hacks has been plotted, but I feel like they're more central this time around. Megan Stalter has definitely been one of the bigger breakouts on the series as well with her comedy style. Ultimately, I don't have a ton more to really add on the topic of the Hacks final season. I'm just hoping that Deborah and Ava more or less stay together and aligned this season. I think it would be a satisfying kind of change of pace if they are kind of locked in on the same goal versus being driven apart and having to come back together by the end of the season just because this is the final stretch. That said, I believe there's 9 more episodes to go. It'll be a fully formed, final season, so I suppose there is room. But we'll see. I'm confident in the creative team behind this show and looking forward to seeing where it takes us. Let me know what are your thoughts on Hack Season 5, and for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.